let's do a quick refresher, because 2012 is a long time ago. And I hate to say it, I hate to put it this way, but it's easy to get the facts of the different cases mixed up. Like, where was this school shooting? Oh, where was this school shooting? Oh, when was that one? And which weapons were used where? So let's just do a quick refresher about Sandy Hook, the Sandy Hook school shooting. So we're all on the same page. And then we'll talk about this disgusting way that the now essentially dissolved Remington gun manufacturer is responding to suit by the families of murdered victims. As I told you, I followed every single bit of information, every single bit of news that came out about Sandy Hook, about Newtown. I wanted to know everything. I didn't want anything to skip by me, because I guess in my mind, I thought this will help me keep my kids safer. If I know this, then potentially, it could help and prevent this in other schools. I don't know what I was thinking. It wasn't quite rational, but it was like, I need to know everything. So I even followed the conspiracy theories, like these things that wacky people were saying about what so-called actually happened at Sandy Hook. I would read those things, and obviously, when you actually search for truth and fact, those things are easily debunked. But I wanted to know what everyone was saying. I wanted to know everything, absolutely everything. So I want you to keep in mind this time frame. So this was a time where, school shootings were common, they were happening, but never anything like this. Never anything in an elementary school with these tiny, tiny, tiny kids. The way it happened was weird. This is just some background. So at Sandy Hook Elementary School, 26 people, 20 students and 6 adults were shot and killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut on December 14th. And again, that's 2012. So this was an earlier kind of summary. So keep that in mind if you choose to read it later. But essentially, before he went into the school, he actually killed his mother, Nancy Lanza. And Nancy Lanza is important, well, obviously because this is Adam Lanza's mother, but also because in reading the facts and reading who, owned these guns that were used, she was very complicit in having this dangerous person, Adam Lanza. She's complicit in giving him access to extraordinarily dangerous weapons. And again, at some point before he went into the school, so this would have been in the morning, he murdered his mother, Nancy Lanza, and I believe she was in her bed. So he grabbed 3 guns from the house: a semi-automatic AR-15 assault rifle made by Bushmaster. So this is a Remington. The AR-15 is a Remington, and pistols made by Glock and Sig Sauer. And went to the elementary school wearing black fatigues and a military vest. And this is according to law enforcement. So they, let me see if you can see it. Yeah, so what they show, they said these are similar to what was found there. So classes were underway at Sandy Hook. There were about 700 students there. And the principal, Hochsprung, had ordered a new security system that required visitors to be identified and buzzed in. So the doors would lock at 9:30 a.m. And so the door was locked when Adam Lanza arrived. So he actually ended up shooting. And this is a very famous photo, if you can picture it, where the front entrance to the elementary school is shot out, the whole front window. So the principal heard loud pops, and she and the school psychologist, Mary Sherlock, and vice principal Natalie Hammond went out to investigate. Hammond was wounded. The other were murdered. And then at about 9:30 a.m., as announcements were read over the loudspeaker, shots were heard across the school. Students described being ushered into bathrooms and closets by teachers after hearing first shots. Lanza moved toward 2 classrooms of kindergartners and first graders. In one classroom was Lauren Rousseau, a substitute teacher who was filling in for a teacher out on maternity leave. The gunman shot all 14 students in the classroom. In another classroom, Victoria Soto, 27, moved her first grade students away from the door. The gunman burst in and shot her, according to the father of a surviving student. 6 students were killed in that classroom. Police report that no law enforcement officers discharged their weapons at any point. The gunman took his own life. He took out a handgun and shot himself in a classroom as law enforcement officers approached. 20 students, ages 6 and 7, and 6 adults were killed at the school. Those details are obviously devastating. They were devastating to hear the first time around. They're devastating to go back over to reemphasize. And if you do think back, think about the frenzy around the news at that time. So there were different, at first, Ryan Lanza, the brother, was taken into custody. And I believe he was in New York City that morning. So he was first taken into custody. And so people were thinking, okay, was this the shooter? What's happening? Why is he in New York City? Like, why is this guy from New York City being arrested? More information came out. Eyewitnesses and witness statements are unreliable. They just are. The way the human memory works, the way the human mind works, that's just the case. That's just a fact. So you often hear in these early stages facts that aren't correct, such as, oh, the shooter is running away in the woods. There's another shooter and he's running away in the woods. Well, that's not what happened. There wasn't another suspected shooter, but that came out in the news. And so people would talk about that. And so out of these things that were reported or talked about or misidentified or whatever, came this conspiracy culture that really ramped up for Newtown, for Sandy Hook. Remington subpoenas report cards of 5 children killed in Sandy Hook shooting. So as part of a lawsuit defense, the company that made the guns used in the Sandy Hook shooting demanded the disciplinary and attendance records of dead children. So that part we've already talked about. So just so you know, this is what the timeline was. This was back in mid-July. The defense served a subpoena, so this is Remington, on the Newtown Public School District seeking any and all educational records in your possession, including but not limited to application administration paperwork, attendance records, transcripts, report cards, disciplinary records, correspondence, and all other educational information and records pertaining to each of the 5 first graders whose estates are plaintiffs in the case. There is no conceivable way that these records will assist Remington in its defense, as we just read. And again, they did hand over the information. And they also, Remington subpoenaed employment records of 4 teachers who were killed in the shooting. We have no explanation for why Remington subpoenaed the Newtown Public School District to obtain the kindergarten and first grade academic attendance and disciplinary records of these 5 school children. Josh Kossoff, one of the lawyers representing the Sandy Hook parents, told Motherboard, "The records cannot possibly excuse Remington's egregious marketing conduct or be of any assistance in estimating the catastrophic damages in this case. The only relevant part of their attendance records is that they were at their desks on December 14th, 2012, which makes complete sense. Why did it matter if the child maybe had the flu for a week and was out of school? Why does that have any relevance at all to this case, to this lawsuit? It doesn't. And you know whose ears perked up as soon as they heard this? You know whose ears perked up as soon as they heard that Remington wanted these records? The conspiracy theorists' ears perked up. Because it sure sounds like Remington wants this proof of these children, or at least this is how conspiracy theorists are taking it. Remember, some of these folks, in really disgusting ways, denied that these children ever existed. And so in checking on these conspiracy theorists, these same old folks who've been pushing this for many, many years, they're loving this. They're loving what Remington is asking for, because it gives them the opportunity to introduce more doubt and to kind of sway people to their side or whatever. There are some very mentally ill people who seem to have this vested interest in keeping this going and making people think that this was a hoax or whatever. They're denying the reality of what actually happened here. And what Remington is asking for only makes that worse. What Remington is asking for makes no sense. What's the reason? Again, a lot of conspiracy theorists seem to think that it's helpful to their case in trying to prove that there's something off here, or that this didn't actually happen, or that this was a hoax, or whatever. The fact that Remington is pushing this is incredibly shocking.